Racism is awakening across societies, emerging not as a manufactured evil, but as a rediscovered reality long obscured by layers of programming, brainwashing, and social experimentation. This resurgence reveals racism as neither inherently good nor bad, but a neutral human response to observable differences, one that has been abused for ulterior motives throughout history. Contemporary shifts in racial realization expose the anti-racism industry as a subversive agenda, where rhetoric of equality masks power grabs and division. As eyes open to these truths through media and unfiltered discourse, people recognize the benefits of acknowledging racism, enhanced self-preservation, cultural cohesion, and pro-human endeavors on individual, group, and societal levels. This awakening dismantles the illusions of colorblindness, affirming racism as a fundamental human right and a practical tool for navigating reality. The process uncovers how suppressed instincts now resurface, allowing individuals to reclaim control over their environments and interactions without imposed restrictions. The awakening extends to recognizing racism's role in countering distortions that have long hidden its practical value. Societies conditioned to reject racial awareness now confront the failures of such suppression as evidence of disparities in behavior and outcomes becomes undeniable. This shift empowers groups to act on historical patterns, rejecting narratives that promote denial for hidden gains. Racism, in this light, becomes a force for clarity, enabling decisions that align with empirical observations rather than enforced blindness. As awareness grows, it exposes the mechanisms of control embedded in anti-racism efforts, revealing them as tools for maintaining dominance under false pretenses. Through this resurgence, racism affirms its place as an essential human response, rooted in survival needs that transcend moral judgments. The unveiling process highlights how acknowledging differences strengthens communities against external manipulations, fostering resilience in the face of diversity's challenges. This perspective restores autonomy to individuals, allowing them to prioritize their group's interests without apology. Racism's neutrality permits its application in ways that benefit humanity, from resource protection to informed vigilance. The awakening thus represents a return to unfiltered truth, where racism serves as a cornerstone for enduring strength and prosperity. Historical layers, racism's abuse, and the veil of obfuscation. Racism's realities have been hidden behind thin veils of historical manipulation, where migrations and isolations naturally fostered in-group preferences for survival. Yet, these instincts were twisted for ulterior motives, such as colonial expansions that justify dominance. Throughout history, figures have communicated racial truths, but contemporary narratives suppress them through education and media, promoting self-loathing and uniformity. The concealment of these layers perpetuated a distorted view, where natural biases were labeled as flaws to serve specific agendas. This manipulation extended to rewriting historical events, obscuring how racial preferences enabled groups to withstand invasions and resource scarcities. This awakening uncovers how racism was abused, not as a problem in itself, but through circumstances like systemic distortions. For instance, ancient societies linked traits to survival advantages, a practical acknowledgement now revealed as essential. Sources highlight how racial consciousness was pathologized, conditioning people to deny patterns in behavior and outcomes. The exposure of these layers shows racism's neutrality, a tool for resource protection, not inherent harm. As veils lift, individuals see how historical abuses stem from power plays, not from racism's core function, allowing for a reclamation of its protective essence. Expanding, evolutionary adaptations underscore racism's role in genetic continuity, abused by agendas that dilute group solidarity. Historical precedents affirm that acknowledging divergences counters enforced equality, benefiting communities by fostering cohesion against corporate dilutions. The unveiling process traces back to tribal origins, where isolation created strong in-groups capable of enduring hardships. This historical depth now informs modern realizations, where racism suppression is seen as a deliberate tactic to weaken dominant groups. The resurgence brings these layers to light, empowering a return to instinctual strategies for long-term endurance. The programming and brainwashing shifts in racial realization. People's eyes are opening after decades of closed minds due to anti-racism programming, which brainwashed societies into viewing racial preferences as immoral. This social experimentation hid racism's positive benefits, like informed decision-making in diverse environments. Now, through contemporary media, awareness spreads on a larger scale, revealing how anti-racism rhetoric was abused for subversive agendas. The programming involved repetitive messaging that pathologized natural instincts, creating generations detached from empirical realities. This shift in realization marks a break from conditioned responses, as unfiltered information challenges the established narratives. Surveys indicate an increase in overt racism. Subversive force diversity training, meant to combat so-called bias, often worsens attitudes, awakening people to the ineffectiveness and ulterior motives of suppression. This backfire effect exposes the hidden agendas behind such initiatives, preempting lawsuits while commodifying anti-racism into a profitable industry. Critics argue that anti-racism serves inter-white struggles, maintaining hierarchies under equality's guise. The realization process uncovers how these programs reinforce divisions rather than resolve them, prompting a reevaluation of racial dynamics. As brainwashing unravels, individuals reclaim the ability to observe and act on differences without guilt. In online discussions, users describe rude awakenings to societal racism, empathizing with impacted groups, and recognizing privileges and envy. This shift highlights how brainwashing obscured realities, but now, unfiltered views, such as responses to incidents, reveal patterns benefiting safety. The conversations amplify the awakening, spreading insights that counter program denial. Social experimentation's failures become evident as increased awareness exposes the industry's commodification and ineffectiveness. This realization fosters a broader movement toward embracing racism's practical role in human interactions. Benefits of acknowledging racism: protection and cohesion. Acknowledging racism brings myriad benefits, from self-preservation to cultural reinforcement. It protects by recognizing threats in behavioral patterns, saving lives through vigilance. Evolutionary psychology supports in-group bias as a safeguard, ensuring cooperation and resource allocation. The acknowledgement process sharpens decision-making, allowing individuals to avoid risks based on observable trends. This benefit extends to communal levels, where groups fortify their positions against external pressures. On a group basis, racism fosters cohesion, countering imposed self-loathing promoted by media. This cohesion benefits humanity by preserving diverse heritages, challenging uniformity that ignores empirical divergences like crime statistics. Individually, it empowers informed navigation, reducing risks in multicultural settings. The advantages include heightened resilience, as racial awareness enables proactive responses to challenges. Acknowledging racism thus serves as a foundation for sustained strength across scales. Sources affirm that racial awareness enhances agency and confidence, motivating responses to aggressions. This pro-human endeavor promotes solidarity, where racism's neutrality allows positive uses, like defense against targeted discrimination. The benefits manifest in practical ways, from resource control to genetic preservation. As acknowledgement grows, it unlocks potential for advancement, free from the constraints of denial. Racism, in this view, becomes a versatile tool for protection and cohesion. Exposure of the anti-racism industry, subversive agendas revealed. The anti-racism industry has been exposed as a subversion, with ulterior motives like financial gain and power maintenance. Training fails to reduce biases, often increasing them, revealing a commodified facade. Coherent observers label it discriminatory, aligning with de-radicalization efforts that obscure oppression sources. The exposure highlights how the industry profits from division, perpetuating cycles of conflict under the cover of resolution. This revelation undermines the credibility of anti-racism initiatives, showing their role in maintaining control. Advocates of anti-racism often harbor hidden racism, subconsciously favoring their own while virtue signaling. This hypocrisy, rooted in psychological issues like moral credentialing, perpetuates inequality. Legislation against racism proves ineffective, causing more division than racism itself, which poses no inherent issues but responds to circumstances. The industry's agendas come to light as tools for manipulation, where suppression serves specific interests rather than universal good. As exposure spreads, it weakens the hold of these subversive elements. Online posts echo this, with awakenings to immigration realities mirroring post-communist crises, where nostalgia reflects cultural losses. White identity reawakening counters suppression, recognizing demographic dismantling as a threat. The discussions amplify the revelation, spreading awareness of the industry's commodification. Subversive motives, from political control to profit, fuel larger-scale scrutiny. This process empowers a rejection of anti-racism's facade, affirming racism's unfiltered role. Racism as reality and human right, illogical to legislate away. Racism is real, a human right encompassing thought and association freedoms. Attempts to legislate it away are illogical, exacerbating problems through hypocrisy. Anti-racism's one-sided demands infringe on self-advocacy. The right to racism upholds open acknowledgement of differences, resisting suppression that distorts social dynamics. Legislation's failures stem from ignoring racism's natural basis, leading to unintended divisions. This awakening affirms racism's necessity for safety, saving lives by enabling pattern recognition. As a right, it challenges colorblind ideologies, upholding truthful observation. The exposure of anti-racism's sinister motives, political control, and profit fuels larger-scale awareness, empowering pro-human uses. Racism's reality defies legal erasure as innate tendencies persist despite mandates. This recognition restores autonomy in racial matters. In affirming racism as a human right, the illogical nature of legislation becomes clear, as it targets a core human response without addressing underlying abuses. The right encompasses freedom to form preferences based on ancestry, ensuring groups navigate realities unhindered. Awakening to this truth counters hypocrisy, where anti-racism serves as a veil for control. Racism remains unlegislatable, a fundamental aspect of existence. Conclusion: the end of illusion. The awakening of racism represents a profound shift, stripping away decades of obfuscation to reveal its neutral, practical essence as a human response to differences. This resurgence dismantles program denials, exposing how anti-racism agendas have manipulated narratives for power and profit while hiding racism's benefits in self-preservation and resource control. As historical layers unfold, societies reclaim the right to acknowledge racial patterns without apology, countering brainwashing that promoted uniformity over truth. The exposure of subversive motives within the anti-racism industry accelerates this process, highlighting its failures and commodification. Ultimately, racism emerges as an unassailable tool for navigating diversity, safeguarding legacies against dilution. Expanding on the awakening, racism's role and protection becomes central, deterring threats through vigilant recognition of disparities. The benefits extend from individual safety to group endurance, where evolutionary roots inform modern strategies for dominance. Legislation's futility underscores racism's resilience, as attempts to suppress it only amplify divisions rooted in hypocrisy. Power dynamics reveal anti-racism as a temporary ploy, opposed until its critics can wield racial preferences themselves. This comprehensive unveiling affirms racism's place in human strategies, empowering unfiltered application for advancement. In conclusion, racism's awakening unveils abused layers, revealing benefits for individuals, groups, and humanity. Eyes open to reality's post-brainwashing, exposing subversion, and affirming racism as an unlegislatable truth. The future hinges on this recognition, where racism fosters resilient worlds grounded in observable facts.